Welcome, stranger, to Madame Strangeways, where I, Madame Strangeways, narrate your true strange stories of the unexplained. Whether you're a skeptic, a believer, or some secret third thing, stick around after the story where I will share my strange thoughts and research about said strange story. Along the way, I'll also drag you down a slew of strange rabbit holes, kicking and screaming if needs must. Before we get to the true strange story, however, the strangest of shoutouts to my Patreon patrons. TJ Hodder of the Tapes of Trepidation podcast, Gmanmusic, Ted, Keith, and Tori. Thank you so much to my feral fiendish five for supporting the show. Hear your name at the beginning of every episode, get a free sticker, and get bonus Madame Strange Notes episodes and guided sleep meditations for joining the Patreon at patreon.com/Madame Strangeways. Sounds like it's about to rain hellcats and hellhounds outside, so you know what that means. Settle in for a true strange story with Madame Strangeways. Something Unexplainable in Korea by Anonymous. This happened in 2013 when I was in Korea. My wife was watching something yesterday about ghost stories, and it reminded me of this. I'm not that great at storytelling, but I'll do my best. I was in South Korea helping to train the Korean Marines. We would teach them about fields of fire and how to advance on a target and all that. My job in the Marines was intelligence analyst, so I wasn't much in the teaching of actual infantry tactics. I mainly helped them with terrain study and building terrain models. I also was part of the group to do OPFOR. Basically, when the classroom stuff was over, there would be actual training on attacking objectives and simulation fighting. OPFOR stands for Opposing Force, so my job was to act like the enemy and attack them to give them scenarios on what to do. We were training in these deep woods, like really thick woods. Trying to navigate it during the day was tough enough, and we were tasked with going out at night to find them. There were 8 of us. For training purposes, we were given their coordinates so we could find them. So we started down this road. And we stopped like a couple 100 meters down the road from where we could just go straight into the tree line and find them. We didn't want to do that because they could have sentries on the road and it would be easier for them to see us. We split into 2 groups. Me and a few other guys were going to cut in to do the attack, and the rest of the guys were going to stay near the spot we stopped at, a few meters into the tree line, and ambush any patrol. We were using a GPS to navigate through the woods. It was dark as hell, and like I said, trying to walk through it during the day is hard enough, and it was going to take a long time to get to them. I want to say that we were 15 minutes into the walk when the GPS stopped working. I wish I was kidding when I say this because it sounds cliché. It just straight up stopped tracking position. And it's not like we had gone straight into the tree line. We had taken an angle. We didn't want to risk going deeper and possibly getting turned around and getting lost, so we decided to head back. The road semi-encircled the woods we entered, so we figured if we just head back in the general direction we came, we would hit the road again. We were just about to head back until we heard what sounded like someone to the right of us a couple meters away. It's dark and the trees are thick, so we can't see anything. These were heavy footsteps. We just assumed it was someone from the group that we split off with coming to find us, but it's like they weren't even trying to be quiet. We started to walk towards the footsteps, trying to be quiet and calling out to them. We didn't hear anything. It wasn't like footsteps that stop whenever you start listening for them. It was a constant trekking through the trees, like they knew where they were going. We kept calling out louder each time, but got nothing back. We were walking towards the footsteps, and it seemed like we should have already ran into them. At some point, we didn't hear anything anymore, so we stopped. Then, the footsteps were to the left of us, going into the direction we were headed before deciding to turn back. At that point, one guy was starting to get uneasy and wanted to head back. But a lot of us were 19-year-olds in the military, hard-headed and acting like we aren't scared of anything. But I won't lie, I was uneasy about it too. I wasn't thinking anything paranormal was going on. I thought it was someone stalking us because this training area was open to anyone coming in and doing whatever. We ended up following the footsteps, and then, all of a sudden, the tree line opens into a clearing. We don't see a single person. If there was someone there, we definitely would have seen them in that clearing. It's a flat field, except there are these mounds, grass mounds. There was like 6 of them, maybe a few more. At that point, the guy that was already scared said, "Fuck this," and started walking back towards the road as fast as he could. I wasn't scared. I just remember being extremely confused. I've never had something like this happen until then and was trying to rationalize it, but I couldn't. We started walking back, and at some point, the GPS started working again. We ended up exiting a bit further down from where we entered. We started walking back towards the other guys that stayed behind. The guy that booked it was already there, saying he wants to go back. None of us really argued, and we walked back. We told the gunny that was in charge that the Garmin was acting up and we couldn't find them. When we got back to a cell service spot, one of the guys I was with told me he looked up what the mounds were. They were burial mounds. I don't remember seeing the headstones, just the mounds. This is the only time in my life something like this has ever happened, and I can't explain it. I'm more inclined to believe someone was fucking with us and a few guys were in on it. More so that they were messing with the guy that got really scared because they knew him better than I did, and were probably messing with him knowing that he doesn't like ghosts. But at the same time, how would they know those mounds were there? It was everyone's first time being in that area, let alone being in Korea. Anonymous, thank you so much for sharing your story. Your cool story. What a cool story. I think this is the first military-based story. So that's very exciting. So Anon, thank you so much for sharing your terrifying experience with me. I'm sorry that it happened. If you are still kind of spooked by it, like I'm sorry that you went through that. On the other hand, a lot of people kind of like having a scary story. So if you're happy that you have a scary story, clap your hands. And I'm happy for you. Otherwise, I'm so sorry that you went through that. Okay, it's crazy to me. There's a couple things, but it's crazy to me that Anon, you and your squadron, what do you call them? The boys? I don't know. You and them. It's crazy that y'all. This is why this is why the word y'all exists. Is I don't need to know what the word is. It's crazy that y'all were hearing these phantom footsteps moving around in the forest and you didn't even know that those things were burial mounds. It would be one thing, if everybody in the group all knew that they were walking around these burial mounds, and then, I could totally see everybody being paranoid and, you're being primed, right? You're like, oh man, if you're in a cemetery, you're in a graveyard and you're expecting ghosts, right? But y'all are in a forest that I assume you've been in other wooded or forest adjacent areas previously at night and not been spooked, not been half as scared, but for some reason you're in a wooded area around burial mounds and now you're hearing phantom footsteps and now you're paranoid. That's what's crazy. But if even the one guy who was like, we got to get out of here, which by the way, he is me. That would be me. I would be like, guys, can we go home? Actually, I wouldn't even be there in the first place. That would be very out of character for me. But assuming that I was there, I would be like, can we please go home? But even if that one guy, even if he didn't know about the burial mounds and he was still creeped out, did he know something that y'all didn't know? Or is he just always kind of scaredy cat? You know what I mean? Or, did someone else know? Did multiple people know, possibly, what those mounds were? Did they know they were burial mounds? Is it possible they knew and they were messing with you and they thought that you knew too? Put a pin in it. We'll get back to it. Okay, but back to the story. The GPS going out? Absolutely not. No, no, no. Like, how often do GPSs just glitch out? I mean, I guess, back in the day. But, like when you called GPS, just as a layman, I feel like if you're in the military, you call it GPS and you're not saying like Google Maps or like Waze, or like Apple Maps, I assume. But I know back then it wasn't so good. But if you're in the military, I feel like your GPS is better. You've got like the best GPS. So is the military GPS going to just glitch out at random? Or maybe were the trees just too thick? Thick with two C's? Thick with two trees? Were the trees just too thick for the reception to work? Or like, I don't know, okay. Or were the spirits of the bodies buried in those mounds interfering with their electromagnetic fields? I don't know how electromagnetic fields work with ghosts. I've talked about it in at least one other episode. I still don't fully understand the parascience behind it. But, I sure keep trying. Anyway, was it the spirits? Because a true believer would say it was definitely ghosts. A true believer would say, unquestionably, this is an open and shut case. This is a standard case of ghosts because there's burial mounds around. I think a skeptic would want to first reproduce the results and take note of things like weather and like clouds. Like if there's too many cloud covers, I assume that a satellite doesn't do as good of a job. Was it a cloudy night? Was it a clear night? Unclear. See what I did there? But you'd want to like reproduce it or try to reproduce it. I mean, if you can't reproduce it, that tells you one thing. And if you can reproduce it, that tells you a completely different thing. Now, a good paranormal investigator, they're going to want to do the same thing that a skeptic is doing. They're going to want to see what can we rule out, what is not paranormal, what is normal. Because, by the way, if you are talking to or watching a paranormal investigator who does not do that, who is not trying very hard to debunk the things that they are finding, you need to find you a better paranormal investigator. Because they're clearly not trying to get to the bottom of it. They're not looking for answers. Anyway, all to say, we'll never know. We'll never know. We can't go back and reproduce the experiment. Or if maybe, I don't know, can we? Do I have a listener? Do I have any listeners in South Korea? Or anyone that travels to South Korea that knows where burial mounds are? Oh my gosh, email me, madamestrangeways@gmail.com. I would love to hear more from you. Let's put something together. It's a special. We'll do a burial mound special. And since the story is set in South Korea, in Korean folklore, if we're talking about ghosts, the Kwishen is a ghost or a spirit of a deceased person, which sounds pretty much exactly like the Western understanding of a ghost, where you kind of stick around after you die if you've got some unresolved issues that you need to work on, or maybe you want revenge. I think revenge is a really big reason why you would stick around after you die. So I think even when you're talking about Korean ghosts and Korean folklore and the paranormal in Korea, maybe the people that were buried in those burial mounds have just some unresolved stuff. Or maybe they were trying to protect their ancestral land from another country's armed forces, which were there. They wouldn't know you're there to help them. How could they know? They're ghosts. A ghost would not know. A ghost would not know that we're the good guys. And how often are we the good guys? Are we the baddies, etc.? I can't blame any potential spirits for being protective over their ancestral land, let's just say. Okay, but you know what? There might be something there. Because as I have discovered in my research, those burial mounds aren't just randomly placed. It's not like you look around and go, well, there's some free land. Let's just put our burial mounds over here. No. There's nothing willy-nilly about it. There's nothing willy nor nilly about it. Those burial mounds were put there with very specific reasoning and consideration by their descendants. Like a lot of effort and thought went into this. They definitely weren't random. So hold on tight, because you're about to learn all about the spooky history and culture surrounding Korean burial mounds and burial practices. Now, if you're new here, hello. Welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. If you're not new here, welcome back. So good to see you again. But if you're new here, Some episodes are really heavy on theories, talking about paranormal theories versus mundane or naturalistic or skeptical theories. And some episodes are really heavy on folklore and culture. And this happens to be one of the latter. Okay, so here we go. Burial mounds actually have a name outside of Korea and are definitely not just found in Korea. They're found in a ton of different places. So from Wikipedia, a tumulus, plural tumuli, it's not the tumuli, is a mound of earth and stones raised over a grave or graves. Tumuli are also known as barrows, burial mounds, house, or in Siberia and Central Asia, as kurgans, and may be found throughout much of the world. A cairn, which is a mound of stones built for various purposes, may also originally have been a tumulus. Okay, this is me. Presumably, I guess they mean that those mounds of stones would have been put over a gravesite, and then there would have been a mound of dirt around the rocks, and then over time, I assume the soil would have eroded away and then just left the rocks behind. Unclear. But also pause, because cairn, the only cairn I know, C-A-I-R-N, the only cairn I know is a terrier named Toto. Is that related? Is a cairn related to a cairn terrier? Like the Scottish dog? And yes, it does appear that cairn terriers used to be called short-haired Skye Terriers, S-K-Y-E. And no, I don't know why they were called S-K-Y-E Skye Terriers. And no, I am not finding out. I am not going down that rabbit hole. You cannot make me. You cannot make me. I'm going to continue because this is already a rabbit hole. This is an ant. We're looking like an ant farm right now of rabbits. Anyway, these terriers, then called short-haired Skye Terriers, were used to wriggle between the rocks of the cairns because there would be foxes hiding in there from the hunters. And so these short-haired Skye Terriers were so good at wriggling into the stones of cairns that they got their new name, the Cairn Terrier. I guess burial mound terrier just doesn't have the same ring to it. Wait a minute. What else can we call it? Tumuli terrier, tomb terrier. I am just now putting together, now that I'm saying tomb and tumulus next to one another, I'm just now realizing, do you know how much research I did on this subject? Hours of research on this subject. And I'm just now putting together, I bet those, yep, that has to be where we got the word tomb from, right? Why is there a B there? Hold on. Hold, please. This is a rabbit hole I'm going to go down. Okay, this is online etymology something. Tomb originates from Old English tomb with an E at the end, T-O-M-B-E, and late Latin tumba, like tuba with an M in the middle, T-U-M-B-A, meaning a mound or grave. Okay. I still don't know why there's a B. It traces back to the Greek tymbos, T-Y-M-B-O-S, burial mound or grave, linking it to mounds or elevated earth, often connected with tumulus. Tumulus. Do you think we used to say tomb? Tumba? Possible. Who knows? Do you pronounce tumba? Let me know, madamestrangeways@gmail.com. Anyway, wow, I just put that together. So that's fun. Anyway, what are we calling Cairn Terriers now? Tumulus terriers? Tomb Terriers. There it is. Tomb Terriers. We love an alliteration. We love an alliteration here at Madame Strangeways. Every human loves an alliteration. Who do I need to talk to? Westminster Kennel Club, if you're listening, which why wouldn't you be? Send me an email so we can work this out. madamestrangeways@gmail.com so we can get Cairn Terriers properly rebranded. Anyway, moving on back to tumuli or burial mounds, which I will be using interchangeably for the rest of the episode. So here's where I was going to tell you all of the other places that tumuli have been found in aside from South Korea. Except, oh my God, there's so many. Here's just some. This isn't even all of them. This is, I don't even know if this is scratching the surface. Australia, Somalia, the Sahara in Africa, which covers Niger, which is how Ken Jennings says it. So I'm going to say that, although I don't know if he says Nigeria. I'm not sure. So maybe we just Nigeria. Okay. Burkina Faso, Sudan, Mauritania, and Senegal, Turkey, Ukraine, Russia, Bahrain, Syria, Palestine, India, Pakistan, China, Albania, Bulgaria, Croatia. At this point, I'm just singing the Animaniac song. United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, except most of those that I just said don't have it. But United States, Canada, and Mexico do have. They do have them. And if you're wondering, yes, I can sing every country in Yakko's world. But yes, we do have burial mounds in North America, ranging from Canada all the way through the US, down all the way to Chile. But of course, America has destroyed thousands of these burial mounds in order to build roads and also to grave rob, because of course we have. Those burial mounds would have belonged to any of the numerous indigenous native nations that existed in North America. Tens of thousands of years. Great. Destroyed. I hate it. And if you're curious, which I know you are, the world's largest burial mound is found in Japan, and it's called Daisen Ryokofun, with a length of 840 meters, which as an American means nothing to me, so I had the internet convert that to me, and apparently that's half a mile long, which seems large, perhaps too large. Why is it so big? Doesn't make any sense. Anyway, we're not here to discuss the Japanese burial mounds. We are here to discuss the burial mounds in South Korea. Also, here's a note. I did a lot of research and wrote out phonetically all of the Korean words that are included in this episode. Obviously, I am not a native Korean speaker, so please be gentle with me. I have tried very hard. So the Korean word for tumuli or burial mound is Hongbuen. Now, when discussing South Korean burial mounds, picture this. Picture a lush landscape of green grass, and there's this perfectly rounded, perfectly sloped hill. You know, like when you're a kid and you're drawing hills, right? Like a landscape, and it's this perfect, what is it, a sine wave? I don't know science. Is that science or is it math? Let's find out together. Okay, a sine wave is math, not science. But you get the gist, okay? It just looks too perfect. This hill looks perfect. It's too perfect, in fact. It's a little too perfect. And some of them are very large. Some of them look like they're actually just gigantic hills. But others, like for family mounds of working families, those might only be like a few feet tall, max. Of course, the really large, massive ones were only for royalty and the rich, of course. Specifically, like the Shilla dynasty royal tombs in the Daelungwan tomb complex in Jeongju, especially Hwannam Daechom tomb, which is 75 feet tall at its peak and 403 feet long. So still too big. Why is it so big? How many people are in there? Actually, I didn't look that up. Hold on. Let's find out. Oh, look at this. Oh, no. Published 2 days ago in Yahoo News Australia. This headline, I did not know this. I wrote this script like over a week ago. This is the breaking strange news. Ancient Korea had people from sacrificial caste killed to please royalty, skeletons reveal. I will say, aside from that being extremely messed up, I know that Korea is not the only culture that does this, but can I just say, it sounds like the skeletons have told them, like skeletons reveal, and the skeletons are just dishing the tea. They're like, and then they made us. It's not funny. This is actually not funny at all. Anyway, listen to this. Entire families were sacrificed in Korea about 1,500 years ago in rituals to honor royalty, according to a new analysis of dozens of skeletons unearthed in Gyeongsam in the southeastern region of the Korean peninsula. The findings raise further questions about slavery, social mobility, and institutionalized violence in ancient Korean kingdoms. Wow, that's messed up. In 1982, archaeologists first unearthed a burial complex in the region constructed sometime between the 4th and 6th centuries. It was thought to contain the graves of local ruling families, with over 1,600 tombs, Jesus, and the remains of nearly 260 individuals unearthed from the site. At least 20 of the tombs displayed evidence of songjang, a practice in which individuals were sacrificed and buried alongside the dead. I don't like it. Our genetic findings are the first to confirm the acts of sunchong of an entire household, they wrote in the study published in the journal Science Advances. Wait, hold on. There's more. The latest findings suggest that people chosen for the Sunchong ritual inherited their roles. I guess that's what a caste is. I guess you're kind of born into that caste. But that sucks. Being born into that caste, that would be awful. You're a kid and you're okay. Are you learning? I was going to say picture being a kid back in this time and you're in the sacrificial caste and you're learning about castes, and you're like, Mom, what kind of caste are we in? Are we royalty? Are we the working class? No, sweetie. Our entire family will be sacrificed as soon as someone royal dies. Okay. I'm going to have to do more research on that. But that's crazy. Do you know more about this topic than I do? Let me know, madamestrangeways@gmail.com. Are you in the sacrificial caste? Do you want to speak out while you can? Email me, madamestrangeways@gmail.com. Wow, I'm so glad I looked that up. What a fun find. Fun is maybe not the word. Okay, where were we? We're talking about Korean burial mounds. So if you're like me, you're probably wondering, I hope you're not like me. But if you are like me, you're probably wondering, what are the logistics around how these bodies are buried under these mounds? Because, I told you, some of them are not very large. Some of them are pretty short. They're not large enough to put a body in. And I didn't think that there was cremation happening. So then how are they fitting these bodies? Here we go. From a 2020 issue of Gwangju News. Here we go. The Korean burial method has traditionally been subterranean internment. I knew it. That is, burying the coffin in the earth on a hillside with an earthen mound on top. This practice includes pungsujili, or geomancy, the selection of a blessed site as the location of the grave. Now, put a pin in geomancy because we're going to be back for that. I can't wait. Any kind of mancy, really. I'm interested. But okay, the subterranean internment doesn't fully answer my question. But I found this other article, and it's by Simon Morley from his blog called Notes from the Edge, and the article is called The Korean Dead. Here we go. Koreans traditionally bury their dead under the mound upright in a coffin made from 6 planks of wood. How many planks go into like a Western coffin? I guess it would be okay, so you got like the 2. Is it a rectangle or is it like a vampire? I think if it's a rectangle, that's like 1, 2 on the side and then like 2 on the top and bottom. So that's 4. And then there would be 2 on the top and bottom. So that would be 6. That would be 6 planks of wood. But yeah, just kind of like a traditional rectangular coffin. Now, when I first read that and I was like, made from 6 planks, tell me why I was picturing like a hexagonal, almost like, almost like round-ish tube of a coffin. I was definitely picturing a hexagonal, you probably don't know because I shouldn't have thought that. I should have just thought, oh yeah, 6, that makes sense. 6 planks, okay, that makes sense. Anyway, these planks represent the 4 cardinal points on the compass, in addition to a plank for heaven and one for earth. Corpses either face south or towards some important spiritual part of the landscape, like a mountain. Okay, now this next paragraph is actually not specifically relevant to what we're talking about, but when do I let that stop me? So listen, this is just so interesting. There are more than the usual number of such burial mounds around the DMZ, or the demilitarized zone, which is what separates South Korea from North Korea, because many exiles from North Korea opt to be buried as near as possible to their homeland. That's so sad. For like a myriad of reasons, it's sad. But actually, the whole of the Korean peninsula is a massive graveyard. Everywhere you go in the hills and mountains, as you cruise along a highway, for example, you will see these tumuli graves dotting the landscape. So listen, Anonymous, this does make me wonder if at least someone in your group did pay attention and see all of those mounds and asked what they were at some point when y'all weren't around and found out. It's very possible someone in your group knew that they were burial mounds. But even if they did know, I feel like for it to be a really good prank, you would have also had to know. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's the point of being spooky scary if nobody knows that those mounds are burial mounds? You see what I'm saying? Anyway, it does make me wonder, though. Okay, so now we know that people were buried vertically up and down in the ground, upright. and then a mound of dirt is placed on top, shaped into a perfect little hill. But I can't find how deep the graves go, because how are you digging straight down like that? Just a tiny, you know what I mean? Compared to oh my God, listen, digging a Western grave, say 6 feet wide, right? That's hard. But if you're going to dig, are you going to dig straight? Do you see what I mean? Like a core of the earth? Are you doing that? Or I assume you're digging a whole lot more around it. And then where do you get the dirt? You're digging for the mound. You know what I mean? Where are you getting all this dirt? Where is it coming from? Where did it go? Where did the burial mound dirt come from, Cotton Eye Joe? I just have so many more questions about this process, and I can't find any more information about it. I have looked. I can't find anything else. I don't know why I'm so hung up on the logistics of grave digging in ancient Korea, but here we are. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing with my Saturday night, to possibly none of your surprise. But since I can't find that answer, we're going to return to the subject of geomancy. Yay, exciting. So again, reminder, geomancy, specifically in Korea, is called Pungsujiri, which effectively translates to wind, water, earth, principles theory, not wind, water, earth, fire, avatar opening, not like that. And it is related to Chinese feng shui, but it is not the exact same. Do not get them confused. It appears that in the 9th century, this Buddhist monk from Korea traveled to China to study all kinds of esoteric Buddhism and Taoism. So there he was exposed to Taoist mysticism, which sounds very cool and also kind of like I'm intimidated as well at the same time. And then he learned all about the feng shui system and brought that back to Korea. From there, it was deeply intertwined within Korean Buddhism, and it is still practiced by monks to this day. And then this is from theculturetrip.com by Mimsy Ladner. Chinese feng shui often focuses on interior design and furniture placement to increase the auspicious and material fortune and wealth of an individual. However, Pungsujiri, on the other hand, emphasizes a communal harmony that includes not just an individual household, but also the city and country at large. In fact, the capital of Seoul was constructed following Korean geomancy theory. Seoul was constructed based on the calculations of Pungsujiri masters who found an auspicious place between 4 energy-rich mountains. So this geomancy is what was applied to finding burial mound locations for not just, the working class, probably not for the sacrificial caste, though. I guess you wouldn't have to worry about it. I guess that is one good thing about being in the sacrificial caste. You don't need to worry about using geomancy to find your parents' perfect burial plot. That's just, you don't need to worry about it. How do they decide, you know what I mean? How are they deciding who? Because you can't clear the whole cast out or you're not going to be able to refresh your cast. You know what I mean? You can't kill all your sacrificial cast or you're not going to have any sacrificial cast left. You can't have your cake and eat it too. So how do they decide which ones they keep and which ones they don't keep? How do they, I just have so many more questions. We're not going to get into it right now, but that's stuck with me. Anyway, they're using geomancy to find the locations of these burial plots for their burial mounds. But because we're going down this little geomancy rabbit hole, yay, how fun, here's something else. From the Korea Jungam Daily, written by Lim Song-hae, during Japan's colonization of Korea from 1910 to 1945, less fun than, because I just said, how fun, this is not very fun. It is said that Pungsujiri was not welcomed by the Japanese during the colonial period. One Korean urban legend says that the Japanese hammered iron rods across Korea's mountain ranges at different locations in an attempt to cut off the flow of geomancy energy, which is diabolical. Anyway, continuing with this article, the iron rods were indeed hammered into the mountain by the Japanese during the colonization, but some news articles claim that they were just used to mark a trail in the mountains in 1920s. They're like, we didn't know. We're just babies. We didn't mean to do that. Interesting. Okay, Japan. Regardless, the truth didn't much matter to Koreans back in the day. In 1995, during the Kim Young-sam administration, the president said that the government would lead and support Koreans trying to find and remove all of the iron rods to mark the 50th anniversary of Koreans' independence. I love that. I love that so much. This urban legend forms the backbone for the 2024 film Exhuma, which I had never heard of before, but now I really want to watch, and I think you should want to watch it too, especially after listening to this episode. This is so interesting. Here's the movie description that I just looked up for you. On the behest of a wealthy family... Oh, sorry, hold on. On the behest of a wealthy family, a shaman and her associates undertake the relocation of an ancestral grave to resolve a curse, setting off eerie portents. Coming this summer in a world. Like, that's going to be good. I'm going to have to watch it. I don't know where it's available. I don't know how I'm going to get my hands on it, but I think I need to watch it. Okay. Exiting that rabbit hole, coming back around. So I was wondering, how common are burial mounds in 2026? Like, when did they stop being a thing? Okay, listen to this. Because it feels like South Korea is not very big, you know? So Arlington National Cemetery, yes, in the United States, just hear me out. Arlington National Cemetery is projected to run out of burial plots by 2041. That's really not that far away. Urban cemeteries in the U.S. are increasingly out of room, and they're not selling new plots. And in the United Kingdom, it's estimated that possibly half of their cemeteries could be full by the year 2033. So countries are kind of running out of places to put bodies, to bury them. And they're not even, listen, you're not even using burial mounds in Arlington National Cemetery or in the United Kingdom. At least not now. And did you know, South Korea is roughly the size of the state of Indiana. Indiana's population was 6.97 million in 2025. South Korea's population, in the same size, in the same amount of space, is roughly 51.1 million in 2026. That's basically 7 million versus 51 million. South Korea's population is over 7 times as big as Indiana's. And it's on the same tiny little plot of land, which tells me that South Korea has definitely run out of room for traditional burials, for their burial mound burials. So let's go back to that Jeongju News article that I mentioned earlier. Here we go. According to geomancy, a blessed site for burial is required to guarantee good fortune and happiness for the offspring of the deceased. But such sites have now been exhausted. It's presently even difficult to find an ordinary spot for a grave site. This shortage of burial grounds has forced the government and social organizations to look towards another mode of burial, cremation. Statistics show that the cremation ratio, which is fun to say, cremation ratio, the crematio, you might say, is increasing annually. It was 13.7% in 1980 and 82.7% in 2016, so it's got to be like in the 90s now. Cremated remains are generally treated in one of 3 ways in Korea. Stored in a columbarium, which we'll get to, interred in a tree burial, or buried in a natural burial. And I'm going to tell you right now, the tree burial and the natural burial are basically the exact same thing, except one involves a tree and one involves like flowering shrubbery. That's a quote. So now we're going to look at a columbarium. Oh, wait. But the interesting thing about the tree burial and the natural burial is that they put the remains in an unbaked clay pot. It can't be baked because that way, when you're burying it under the tree or under the flowering shrubbery, everything dissolves into the earth. And so then the plants can have access to the ashes within. Okay, so now a columbarium is a word I had never heard of, but it is apparently a repository where cremated remains are stored. The remains are placed in a small ceramic or wooden pot that is stored in a niche within a structure of multi-tiered compartments, so that one building may contain thousands of pots, thus making huge burial grounds unnecessary. It's crazy because that's actually the exact opposite of what burial mounds were to ancient Korea. First of all, subterranean. Secondly, a beautiful hill is put on top. Beautiful sloping hill. Very beautiful to look at. You got to make sure it's like next to the right kind of trees and water, and that the sun is doing the right stuff, to look. There's a lot that goes into this, and it's like a really beautiful location that gets picked. And now this is basically just like an apartment complex, a depressing apartment complex for urns, effectively, which is kind of depressing, right? Like, right? Isn't it a little depressing? But it's convenient. And modern humans, we go nuts for convenience. Okay, we're almost done. But is the rest of the episode anything about Korean culture? No. Whoops, because I went down this crazy rabbit hole. Here we go. Have you ever heard of flameless cremation? Or perhaps water cremation, aquamation, or biocremation? They're all the same thing. I think, actually, though, having read about it, and it's horrifying, I think it should be called instant pot-mation from Wikipedia. The process is based on alkaline hydrolysis. The body is placed in a pressure vessel, which is then filled with a mixture of water and potassium hydroxide and heated to a temperature of around 320 degrees Fahrenheit at an elevated pressure, which precludes boiling. I don't know why that's relevant, but it seems like it is. The body is efficiently broken down into its chemical components, completely disintegrating its DNA, a process which takes approximately 4 to 6 hours. Oh, is that all? Now, potassium hydroxide is lye, L-Y-E. And yes, this appears to basically be saponification, aka soap making. Soap making. Someone called Tyler Durden. Okay, I'm not calling this water cremation or flameless cremation. That's no. Water cremation sounds gentle. This is the opposite of gentle. Okay, so it's either instant potmation, or, hear me out, human soapmation. Maybe we just say soapmation. Maybe I'm being a little dramatic. Maybe they don't use it to make soap. But how would we know? How would we know? Of course, they would tell us they're not using it to make soap. Okay, Wikipedia continues. The result of flameless cremation is a quantity of green-brown tinted liquid. That's you. That's your body. That's not my body. I'm not going to be doing this. That's you. The result of flameless cremation is a quantity of green-brown tinted liquid containing amino acids, peptides, sugars, and salts, and soft, porous white bone remains. Ah, yes. That are easily crushed in the hand, although a cremulator is more commonly used. Cremulator sounds like a completely made-up word. Anyway, the ash, quote unquote, because, there's no fire. So the ash of the bones can then be returned to the next of kin of the deceased. And then the liquid, if you're curious, what are they doing with that liquid? Oh, and then what are they doing with that liquid? Are they making soap? Here's what they claim, allegedly. The liquid is disposed of either through the sanitary sewer system, which I think is just like the toilet. I'm not saying they're dumping him into the toilet. I'm just saying I feel like, isn't that the same thing? Hold on. Okay, Google. What is the sanitary sewer system?
I found this on the web.
Oh, girl, you're so loud. Okay, I just checked. Yeah, it's just the normal sewer system. Or they dispose of it through some other method, vague, interestingly vague, including use in a garden or green space or soap. That last part was me. That was not in Wikipedia, but I don't think that's too far of a stretch. But while I've got you down this horrifying rabbit hole, I have to mention this little factoid that I found, since it deals with a fellow madam and also saponification. Saponification, which is, again, the creation of soap using lye and a fat. Saponification can occur in oil paintings over time. What? Causing visible damage and deformation. Oil paints are composed of pigment molecules suspended in an oil-binding medium. Heavy metal salts are often used as pigment molecules, such as in lead white, red lead, and zinc white. I was going to make a yellow lead better joke, but I actually hate that song. If I never had to hear that song again, oh my God, I would be so happy. But if those heavy salts react with free fatty acids in the oil medium, metal soaps may form in a paint layer that can then migrate outward to the painting's surface. So it's like, when it says migrate to that, it just means like come to the top, right, of the paint. So it's like escaping the paint. In John Singer Sargent's famous Portrait of Madame X, who I am clearly related to, it's a beautiful portrait of this beautiful woman in this beautiful black dress. Anyway, in John Singer Sargent's famous Portrait of Madame X, for example, the lumps only appear on the blackest areas, which may be because of the artist's use of more medium in those areas to compensate for the tendency of black pigments to soak it up. Isn't that interesting? Oil paintings can accidentally create soap on their surface? What? Now, I don't know how I got so far away from the Korean burial methods that we started this episode with, but I'm also not surprised. But what do you think? Were there ghosts haunting those burial mounds? Were those footsteps that Anonymous heard a sign of spirit activity? Or were some of the Marines pranking other Marines? Do we think the GPS actually glitched, or do we think it was electromagnetic something something? Also, while I'm asking you questions, do you think South Korea will switch to flameless cremation and start making human soap? And one final question. Do you, yes, you, do you have a true strange story that you'd like to hear read on the show? I'm going to need you to email that to me. I'm going to need you to stop what you're doing right now, immediately. Type it up. Typey. Type up your story and email it to madamestrangeways@gmail.com. And I can't wait to read it. Remember that you can feel afraid and not be in danger. You're safe here with me. Probably. Thank you for joining me for more true, strange stories of the unexplained. I'm running a one-madam show here, so please do me a strange solid and follow the podcast, leave me a rating on Apple or Spotify, and maybe even join the Patreon at patreon.com/Madame Strangeways for bonus content. Madame Strangeways is produced and narrated by me, Madame Strangeways. Theme music is by Marina Ryan at marinamakes.co. Cover art is by Andrea Giselle Roldan at Cult of Teddy on Instagram. Every strange story is shared with the permission of the author. You can submit your own true strange story to madamestrangeways@gmail.com. See you soon, she said ominously. Dun, 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 dun.